Well, I'm joined now by Phyllis Bennis, who's a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. Phyllis, welcome to Al Jazeera. So the Israeli government ratifying the Gaza ceasefire and hostage return deal. First of all, what's your reaction to this?
Well, it's a huge relief. It means a respite, at least if it holds, for as long as it holds, maybe as much as 6 weeks, maybe less, maybe more. But only the first 6 weeks is actually really agreed to. This is a huge step to stop the bombing, to stop the assault that has been going on for 15 months. But it doesn't mean that it's over. That's what's crucial, I think, for all of us to recognize, that even if the beginnings of it go ahead and we see the release of up to several hundred, maybe 1,000 Palestinian prisoners and 33 Israeli hostages in this first 6 weeks, the rest has to be negotiated. We don't know what's going to happen next. Netanyahu has insisted for 15 months that he will not end this until Hamas is destroyed. And really what he means is that Gaza is even further destroyed. Whether he will hold to a ceasefire, we don't know. What we do know is that what has happened so far has transformed public opinion across the United States and around the world to the degree that Israel has now failed in its most important goals in the period leading up to October 7th and what has happened since. They have failed. And this is a respite, it is relief for the moment for Palestinians, at least as of 24 hours from now, that maybe we won't have any more babies dying of hypothermia, we won't have any more people dying under the rubble, we won't have another 100 people killed in the next 48 hours before the ceasefire comes into effect.
Yeah, so important, just so important. You say the whole thing has transformed public opinion in the United States, but it hasn't transformed the opinion of the US administration, has it?
Right, that's right. We did not manage to do that. The whole movement that emerged demanding a ceasefire, but we can't say that nothing has changed here. The concept of criticizing Israel, the fact that 40% of the Democratic senators wrote a letter demanding an end to military support for Israel, demanding an end to specific weapons that Israel had requested and that the Biden administration had said, yes, of course, we'll give them. 40% of the Democrats in the Senate said no. That has never happened before. It wasn't enough to stop that shipment. But it changed the fact that there could be that kind of debate, that kind of opposition within official channels, within the Congress. We don't know what's going to happen after Monday when there's a new administration. We don't know. But we do know that things will never go back to the assumption that somehow criticism of Israel is equated with political suicide. It simply isn't. We have to look at what the outgoing ambassador to Israel said about young Jews who grew up with with a very different understanding now, that they did not grow up with the founding mythology of Israel as the underdog that was always going to be protected. And he said, you can't ignore the impact of this war on future policymakers. He also said that when you go to the international space, he was talking about the internet and international media. He said, when you go to the international space, all you see is the civilian impact in Gaza. And that's critical. That's never been the case before. Everything about that has changed. So the Israeli goal up until October 7th was to reemerge, to consolidate their role as a part of the so-called Western democracies. They were well on their way to normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. They had already normalized relations with a number of other Arab states. And all of that was being done to the absolute exclusion of any concern for Palestinians or for Palestine. It was erased from the negotiations of the so-called Abraham Accords. And in that context, this goal of Israel to emerge as a, quote, normal part of the Western alliance is over and done. It's not going to work that way anymore.
Okay.
So I think that...
Phyllis, I'm just going to jump in there. So we heard from Shia Bratanzi, our correspondent in Washington, D.C., saying that there's this rather unseemly thing going on in the United States over, the respective Trump and Biden camps claiming credit for this. It's pretty evident that although this was Biden's plan from way back in May, that this wouldn't have happened without the influence of the incoming administration?
Well, I think it's better to say that it didn't happen until this administration came in. It could have happened in May when it was first implemented, when it was first put forward. And that was a choice of the Biden administration not to impose real pressure on Israel. There were requests, there were urgings, please stop killing so many civilians, please consider signing this ceasefire agreement. There was no real pressure, because whatever your words, as long as you are sending all the weapons that made possible this level of genocide across Gaza, that's an entirely different thing than your words. Your words don't matter. When President Biden said after the killing of 7 people in one of so many massacres of humanitarian workers, this one of the World Central Kitchen workers, and that was the one that caught his interest more than others, maybe because 6 of the 7 were not Palestinians, I don't know why, but that one did, which was all good. When he said, I'm heartbroken by this, I don't doubt that he was heartbroken, but I doubt that that matters. Because as long as your actions don't reflect how heartbroken you are, it doesn't really matter to the rest of the world whether you're heartbroken or whether you're gleeful.
Quite.
It makes no difference.
All right, Phyllis, we're going to leave it there. Do appreciate your perspective. Very interesting talking to you. Thank you so much. These are important times. Let us hope that sense prevails. Phyllis Bennis, fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.